Right, so now that we've got the simple on buttons and outputs on HMIs taken care of, let's move into getting a little bit more tricky with things. So far we've covered using buttons and shapes to take inputs and show an output by changing a color. Now we're going to get into maybe a little bit more of the world of analog. And by that again, I mean changing numbers, not just ones and zeros, but having the capability to show you what like a counter value is, or set a counter value in that instance. So over on the right hand side of the screen in the element section, we're going to go with this first option right there. That would be, if we hover over it, the IO field is what it's called. Over it, it will show you, there we go, IO field. And we can go ahead and drag that in. And if we double click on this, we can get our properties going. Now, for the start buttons and the output, we've been over here in like events and animations, but for an IO field, we actually need to be under properties and then general. So we've got our properties tab and then our general. And then if you notice, we've got actually tag information going on now. So for my little example here, I've created some quick little code. So I've got down here, I've got a little counter going on, nothing too fancy, but I've got a little counter. Scroll down, counter, I've got my HMI start being my count up, HMI stop being count down. Now, in my tags, I actually created tags for these instead of hard coding values, and that is because I want to change them. We haven't really gotten to the world of analog yet, but a quick little look here. If we go to my tag table 2, you can see I have an int, my counter current int, and that is MW12, and my counter preset int, which is MW10. Integers, for the data type, a little quick intro, needs 2 whole bytes of information. So it uses MW10 and MW11. And then if we're using a word, that's what this is also, but if I would make this a dint, that actually needs 4. All right. So this would be MD14, saying that it's a double int. All right, so just something to be aware of. Again, we'll kind of come back to those later when we start really diving into the world of analog. But to know, to put it into our counter, we need them to be ints, ints, and then again, MW. The 10 is just saying which byte address are we using. So I like to get away from things. In the past, you have seen that if I were to use something that is already being used, I'll use my default tag table. So we're using 5 here. If I made this MW5, it doesn't throw an error, yet it's using the same address space as those other tags. So when you're using like bit for bit, it's like, hey, you've already got this one being used. It tells you, makes it yellow. Otherwise, though, it does not. So that is something that's a little bit finicky. And again, I'll kind of show you more about that later and like some problems that will occur. Not in this video, maybe in another one. But anyway, so I've got those set up. I've got my tags. Back to my main. I've got my counter preset here as my PV, my preset value, my counter current as my current value. So it's actually sending that out. Do I have to do this? No, you could actually from the HMI come get the actual information right from the counter itself. I find this to be a little bit of a cleaner institution, cleaner way of doing it just because of how things work. So if you're really tight on space, not your best option, but if you've got some space, and by that I mean memory on the PLC to spare, I think this is the cleaner option, the cleaner way to do it. So that would be my suggestion. So now we come back to the root screen. Let's double click on our counter here. Our tag that we want. So we're going to make this the current value. So we're going to go with, what was it, counter. There we go, counter current. Boom, done. Now, we have a few options here. All right, down here at the bottom, we've got a mode. So right now, this set is an input output. That means as far as HMI is concerned, I can click on it and type a number in. Now, if this is my current address number for the PLC, I don't want to change that. It's not going to change. That means I don't want this to be an input field. This should purely be an output field. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change it to output. So now we have purely output. Your other option is over here on the right. And it's what type of display format do we want? So here you've got binary, you've got date time, you've got hexadecimal, string time, whatever, decimal. We're doing it with just a straight up number here. So that is what I want. You also have how many decimal places do you want? So if you want actually to have some decimals. In this case, we're doing whole numbers. We're not doing decimals. I don't want any. And then here at the bottom, we have our format pattern. All right, and basically this is saying how many zeros do you want to show on the screen. All right, you only want 3? Do you only want 2? I can just delete a 9 here, and it will go down to 2 then. All right. For our purpose of this little counter, we're not going to be counting that high, so we can make it just 2, and it'll be perfectly fine. Same thing that goes with the buttons and whatnot. We can come in here and affect text. All right, so I could make this 32 just to kind of keep it consistent with everything. Now that does mean I need to resize this slightly, so let me go ahead and do that. And now I'm just going to go ahead and download this so you guys can see how it will act. I will be back in a minute. And we're back. All right, so I've got my code both on the PLC downloaded into the HMI. Remember, you have to do that separately, so that's a little annoying, but that's just the way the game works. And as you can see here, we have a counted value of 1. Right? And that does mirror what we have right here. So whatever's on the PLC screen should also be on in the code. Now, as I click start, again, you'll see that they match. One goes to 2, the other goes to 2. But you will see if I click this really quickly, I only got to 3, but if I try it, all of a sudden it jumps really quick. The screen on the computer is updating much quicker than the HMI itself. And if you remember my last video, you remember that I talked about the tag table for the HMI. So if we go ahead and go to that real quick, you'll see that my counter current value right at the top here. All right, so counter current, all right, its acquisition cycle is only 1 second. So it's only updating once every second. So that's why when I tap this really quickly, it jumps from 15 to 21 instead of telling me 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, doesn't show me super fast. So if you saw how slow that was, I'm going to drop this down to 100 milliseconds. I'm going to re-download this, and we'll be back in a moment. All right, now that I've got that updated, you'll see how much quicker that number is counting. All right, that's all I really wanted to show you, that acquisition cycle in real time. So you can see how that does affect what is happening on the HMI. Not the most important thing in the world, but it's definitely something to kind of keep in the back of your mind when you're like, why is the HMI happening so slow? Why isn't it showing me what just happened? Why are the outputs taking forever to turn on? Well, check your acquisition cycle to make sure that they actually match what is going on. So anyway, we have that going now. We've got our output there, and we should probably add some text right next to this to say current. All right, and I'm just going to copy both of those. We're going to paste them. We'll just move them down a little bit. I'm going to make this a preset. And I'm going to change this one, my tag. Nothing else, just I can change my tag. I'm going to go back to counter. Actually, I'm going to change one other thing. Make that preset. And now, instead of it being an output, we want this to be an input-output. Now, you could just make it an input. That should technically be fine. I don't see the harm in making it both an input and an output. So, personal preference, I like to make it do both, but that's just my own opinion. And while we're here, let's go ahead and just throw in an output for that counter. And I'll show you what I mean by it's not the cleanest link. All right, so we'll go ahead and here, we'll go properties. We're going to do our animations, display again, add new, just like we did last time. We're doing appearance. And now I'm going to look at my tag table list. And you'll notice we were actually looking here, we typed Q because that's what it is. It's our output of our counter. It's nowhere to be found. And that's because this is searching our default tag table. Actually, it's searching our PLC tags too. It's searching these. But if you remember from last semester, our counters aren't actually tags in our tag table. Our counters are in our program blocks. So if you explain program blocks and system, the program resources, and counter, and I click on that, here I can find my QU. So I can get this. This is why I'm saying it's not a simple, it's not clean per se. So this is why I don't like doing this in the long run. But anyway, so we've got this. We're going to go 1 and 0 because that is a QU and a QD. So we could say, okay, when this equals 1, we're going to make it go, go green, just like we did the other thing. And otherwise, it's going to be gray, saying it's not met. So we can go ahead. Let me download that, and we'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Now, our preset is 0. Our current value is 30, hence why our circle right now is green. So right there, we got a green circle. If I were to hit my stop a whole bunch of times and bring this back down, got to get it down below 0. There we go. Now it goes off. All right, and again, I didn't change that acquisition time, so that's why it's not always happening instantly for changing. We can also, if we would go to preset, we can tap on that now, and it'll allow us to actually type something in. So I could say, let's make our preset value 5. Hit enter. And now notice that our light went out because we're not there anymore. And if I hit start up to 5, Boom, there we go. If I make this 6, again, just bump it up or make it 8, just 'cause the number we hit. Again, our light went out because, hey, we haven't met our preset value anymore. So it is very convenient that you can then go about changing counter values or things like that. Maybe you only want to put 12 items in a box instead of 15 items in a box because a customer ordered something different. You could do that right on the touchscreen. Someone just come up, hit the button, change it, and then say, okay, hit the start button, say go, and it will then start outputting things. So very, very convenient to be able to change those types of things on the fly like that. Now, you also could change colors based on this. So let's go ahead and just put another box in. Why not? Doesn't really matter what we're doing. You guys can't see my screen. There we go. So we're going to put another box in. And this one we're going to do add an animation to. We're going to do visibility. This is going to be our counter current. There we go. And this is one place I don't like. But I can't change this to value. It's got to be 100 or 50 or whatever the magic number is. Oh, I didn't want visibility. My bad. Let me delete that. I wanted appearance. There we go. And again, this is going to be my counter current value. So again, the problem I have here is I can't change these ranges. Right, it's only, okay, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. There's no real option there for me. Which I really wish I could be like 0 to 50% of preset, do a little bit of formula going on. And I guess technically you could do this in your code to actually figure out what these values were and create some, specific, again, Boolean outputs for what makes this, make that, whatever the case. So you could do it. It's just going to be a bit more complicated programming. But for this instance, I'm just going to say 0, 0 to 10. There we go. And this one will be, there you go. The range in there, and 10 to 30. Actually, 0 to 5. Let's make my life a little bit easier. And this one, 5 to 11, 6. Gonna yell at me if I do 5. 5 to 10. This one would be 11 to 15. Here we go. And I could change its colors. I'd say let's go with a little bit of red action on the bottom, and then we're going to go yellow when we're in this midsection, and then I'm going to say we're green when we're there, and then whatever the case. So we can go ahead and we can download that again, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, so now you can see we've got our yellow box because we're in that 5 to 10 range. If I keep hitting start, then we're going to get up to 10. We'll get to 11, it goes green. And again, if I go all the way down to below 5, it becomes red. So we can actually change colors based on these values as well. So really a handy thing to be able to do to show like temperatures, like, okay, we're in an acceptable temperature range. We're over, we're not in an acceptable temperature range anymore. Maybe you're doing air pressure or something like that. So a lot of capabilities for those colors to mean something to you, that just catch your eye when you're looking quickly at a screen saying, ooh, something's reddish. Nothing should be red on the screen. What is going on? The other thing that I wanted to show you guys, let's maybe use this box. Why not? Is movement. So we can actually make things move. So down here at the bottom, we have movement, we have new animation. We have 4 options. We have direct movement, diagonal, horizontal, and vertical. I think I normally use direct. It allows you to do both horizontal and vertical at the same time, so that is kind of nice. So under, there is the movement. 1 second. All right, I misspoke a minute ago. I don't normally use direct movement. I normally use one of the other 3 options. So right now I've got it set to horizontal, and you can see when I've got that back up, you can see where it's going to move to based on this blue line. So we could say start position, and I could go, okay, let's make it go all the way across the screen. Let's make it like 5. Really, really good at moving. Go. And again, I'm going to make this my counter current, so that way it's my current value. Now this is a range from 0 to 100. All right, my counter current is only, I don't know, 0 to 10 or something. So I'm gonna restrict this. Let's make it 20. It just makes my life a little bit easier. I don't click that button quite as much. So there we go, and let's go ahead and download that. We'll be right back. All right, we've got that set up. Right now our current value is 1. Now as I hit start, you'll notice every time I hit that button, it moves a little bit farther to the right, farther to the right. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. I don't think it accepted my my 20 number. Looks like we're going to 100. Not sure why it didn't, if I just didn't quite get that saved. But If we go back to the actual PLC screen, you can see that, hey, it is still set to 100, hence why we're moving so slow. But this allows you to do some really nice, kind of neat animations, allows you to make some moving things and stuff like that. We also have an appearance option for a visibility option. So I could say, I don't want this to be visible if it's invisible. I want it to be invisible if our current value is 0. So that counted value is 0. So let me go ahead and download that, and we'll be right back. Now, I know I did really quickly go through how to make this invisible, but under the block you want to do, under animations, display, I added a new animation and I made visibility. So I said counter current, 0, everything should be good. So now in my HMI, if I pump this all the way back down to 0, about a whole bunch of times. Try to make you can. There we go. Sorry. There we go. And when we are at a value of 0, it disappears. If we're above 0 or we're below 0, it's there. So really, again, kind of a nice little thing to have for you, for your purposes here. So we've got a lot of little additions that we went over in this video. We added visibility. So can we see something on the HMI screen or not? We talked about appearance again. We talked about moving the blocks horizontally, vertically, diagonally. All right. I have not figured out how to do like a rotation, like rotate the box or something like that. That'd be really convenient, but I haven't figured that one out yet. I don't even know if it's possible. So we've talked about all those types of things for animations. We've also talked about our analog inputs, so allowing us to actually show us an analog value, as well as allow us to change an analog value and send it back to the PLC. So we have talked about a lot of different things in here, which is very, very handy for us. So all these things are really good and useful for you. So just something to be aware of. You also do have like a bar option here. So you can do this. 1 second. All right, so here I am in the properties screen for this. So I've got properties and general, just like we did with the analog inputs, the I/O fields. Now we could set our minimum scale, our max scale. We could say, okay, let's make this 30 for the point of this. Notice it does change that nicely. Our minimum is 0. That is perfectly fine. We do have some other options on here. All right, and now you can see that bar on there. If we hit the start button, the bar moves up just like our counter value does. If we go down, it goes down. So again, nice little useful thing, maybe for a tank height or something like that. So you got some good options for this. You can turn the properties for this. You can turn off like the lines and things like that if you don't want those little marks on there, or all sorts of things that you can tweak and modify about this if you didn't want those lines and whatnot, if you want to use it like a tank. So anyway, that about covers kind of the like craziness that you can do with at least what I'm going into with HMIs, with allowing us to change, use buttons for inputs, use things for outputs, change analog values, all sorts of crazy things. So that's the end of this video. Hope that helps.